Let's say you have 3 tasks or 4 tasks in a row over a 2-week period. And every one of those tasks that you go to do, you run into a real unforeseen problem that nobody could have predicted. You couldn't have predicted it. Management could have predicted it. So it's not really anybody's fault. They don't really care. As soon as you bring that problem to them and you say, hey, I surfaced this unforeseen complexity, they're just hearing this person doesn't know what they're doing. If you get paid to be a software engineer, you might think the main reason companies hire you is to write code. And that makes a lot of sense. It'd be a real problem if you can't write code at all, but that's not really what companies want you for. So in this episode, I'd like to share with you some of the harsh realities that I've learned about why if you go about your career in that you basically act as though as long as you do a good job, you're going to get recognized, you're going to get rewarded. You might get really let down and really frustrated. And so I'd like to share some tips with you today that if you follow some of these techniques I'm going to give you will really help you move ahead of a lot of other developers. So what do companies really want from programmers? What they most want is confidence. Have you ever seen another developer who you know is clearly not as skilled at writing code or some aspect of technology as you, but you see them get promoted, you see them get rewarded, and you're really frustrated about it? You convince yourself somehow that the management is wrong in promoting this person, or that they have some sort of agenda and that's the reason you were passed up. Well, I had to learn the hard way many times in my career that that is not what companies are actually looking for, is that you just write good code. You got to get your work done, but it's really the confidence that you portray in your own work and your ability to help get the project done that's the reason they're paying you, and they'll continue to pay you. So today I'd like to share several tips with you on how you can actually increase the confidence that your company has in you as a programmer. The first one of these is you really got to minimize communicating problems and doubt about the project. Now, this is pretty counterintuitive. As developers, we're often hired to solve problems, or again, that's what it looks like we're hired to do. And it's only natural that when you join a software project, or like, I was a consultant the second half of my career, if I went on to a new client project, within a very short period of time, I would start to notice red flags and problems. Or let's say you get into a code base and you realize some serious problems with the software architecture. I would think earlier in my career that I should document all those, that I should share everything I find, and that somehow then management and other developers are going to look at me as more valuable because I'm finding the problems. And this is such a hard lesson I had to learn. It's just about human nature. It's about just the reality of how people are. If you share too many problems that you see with the software project, with someone's code, with, let's say, process or requirements or architecture at one time, it overwhelms people and it makes them look at you sort of as Debbie Downer. You're, just a negative person that's constantly complaining about problems. So hear me here. This is subtle. I'm not telling you to avoid problems that you see and pretend they don't exist. It's actually really important that you are aware of problems. I think one of the reasons why we tend to over-communicate doubt and problems is because we're worried if we don't let management, or let's say other developers or product management or whoever, know that we found some problem. Well, once stuff hits the fan and the problem turns into a real problem, we're worried that we're going to get blamed. And that's a natural thing to worry about. You should still be aware of the problems that you encounter. But one of the biggest mistakes I made earlier in my career was just thinking that people were going to really value how much I raised doubt. And if you think about, as a project manager, if you cast doubt on the way the project's being managed, requirements are being managed, testing is being done, you're kind of calling their baby ugly, so to speak. You're kind of sending a message to the management or the project management. You're not doing a good job. And that could be totally true. That you could be completely right, but you have to be patient and careful with how you actually communicate that. So I would really just suggest, if you see a lot of problems on your project, write them down, take note of them, and maybe pick one at a time, maybe two, and communicate those to whoever needs to know about it, and just wait until that one issue is dealt with. Then raise some awareness of the next one. That's really going to fight against people, unfortunately, having low confidence in you, because they're kind of going to look at you like, how come everybody else on this project isn't raising all these problems and isn't saying they have all this doubt in the project, but you are? And again, you would think that people would see value in that, but I just had to learn the hard way. They don't. The second thing you can do to really increase management and the company's confidence in you is to repeat the desires of management in the same language that they use. I learned this technique as a consultant, but let's say you're on a project and in the Scrum meetings, you're always hearing people talk about making sure they satisfy the customer. Well, we got to satisfy the customer. Well, is that satisfying the customer? And you hear that phrase over and over again in Scrum meetings or status meetings or requirements meetings. If you start to use that same terminology, just say, oh yeah, I'm implementing this feature, to satisfy the customer, or, well, I'm a little concerned about this one aspect. I don't think we fully understand it. Let's have a meeting to discuss it so that we make sure we satisfy the customer. You're going to build rapport with whoever you're reporting to, whoever needs to build confidence in you, because let's be honest, we're all a little bit narcissistic. Even if we don't have, full-blown NPD or narcissistic personality disorder, we all like to hear what we say repeated. We all like to see other people agree with us. And so if you kind of drop phrases that you're hearing your management use about the things they care about and about the things they're measured by and what's top of mind for them, they're going to kind of subconsciously see you as aligned with what they're looking to do. And if at the end of the day, what's going to keep you employed and what's going to get you promoted and rewarded and recognized is that everybody has confidence in you, that's an easy thing you can do that'll really help. The third thing you can do that'll really increase management and other people's confidence in you, and that's really ultimately, believe it or not, what they're paying for, is to anonymize blame that you place on dependencies. Wow, what does that mean? Well, let's say you're on a project and you have some task you got to complete, and it's dependent on another developer getting their work done. Or, you need to deploy something into a production environment, and for whatever reason, your company isn't fully doing DevOps and you're not empowered as a developer to do so. And so you have to go through an operations team or some sort of checks and balances. And they don't get their thing done in time. They aren't ready. The easy knee-jerk reaction thing that I've done and many of us do is, let's say we're in a status meeting, we're in Slack, whatever. We just want to kick the tires and to the other person. We just want to, kick the can rather, and just say, oh, well, that was, Jerry's fault, or, oh, well, that's the ops team's, responsibility. And what I learned as a consultant, that's a way better way to do this, is to basically frame the thing that wasn't done, just stating that it wasn't done and what aspect of software development or what department was responsible, and let management and other people come to their own conclusion of whose fault it is. So again, in that case where the production environment wasn't set up, let's say they're asking you, hey, Jamie, I expected that feature to be done, and it wasn't done, or like, we're behind on this. Rather than just saying, well, the ops team didn't get things ready for me in time, you could just say, yeah, well, there seems to be some issues with the operations environment not being in the state that it needs to be where I can actually deploy it yet. And then they're going to ask you, well, why? Why are there issues with the production environment? Well, I'm not really responsible for the production environment, so I can't really say. It's just not in the state that I can do it yet. They're going to go, well, as soon as you say that, they're going to think in the back of their mind, well, wait a minute, Jamie's not actually responsible for operations. Who is? Oh, Bob or Jerry or Mary or, whoever the other person is, and they're going to get off your case and go talk to that person. But the reason why I recommend that you do this is, again, if you want to build confidence, one of the things that I think can cause you to lose confidence with your management and other people is if they're worried that you're constantly blame shifting, meaning you're shifting the blame for things that you're responsible for on other people. Now, here's the thing. A lot of times other people are to blame. I'm talking about real situations where you're dependent on another team to deliver something. They don't, and therefore you can't complete your task. But if you want to fight against that part of all of us who, if we hear, reasons from other people that are valid over and over again, we start to think they're excuses, even though they're not. It's just natural. We start to think, man, every time I ask this person something, they've got an excuse, even though it could be perfectly valid. Anonymizing who the dependency is, letting them come to their own conclusions will really keep their confidence in you. The fourth thing you can do that's pretty straightforward to really increase the confidence that management and other people have in you is you got to reduce your throughput. Produce less. Deliver less, commit to less. Why the hell would I be telling you to do this? I'm not telling you to slack off. I'm not telling you to not care about the project. I'm not telling you to be, doing less work than you think you should be paid for. Please, I hope you know from watching all the other episodes of this show that I'm actually calling you to be even more ethical than a lot of people I think that we run into. But if you know software development, you know how uncertain it is, how many unplanned meetings come up, how stuff gets thrown on your plate that you didn't expect, how you're going to run into problems that you couldn't foresee. You got to delay your commitments. I've talked about this in many other episodes of the show. You got to minimize the things that you're on the hook for and give yourself as much flexibility as possible if you want people to keep confidence in you. Because let's say you have 3 tasks or 4 tasks in a row over a 2-week period. And every one of those tasks that you go to do, you run into a real unforeseen problem that nobody could have predicted. You couldn't have predicted it. Management could have predicted it. So it's not really anybody's fault. They don't really care. As soon as you bring that problem to them and you say, hey, I surfaced this unforeseen complexity, they're just hearing, this person doesn't know what they're doing. And I really wish I could tell you that if you found the right company and you just left where you are, or you searched high and wide, you're going to find a culture in a company where that never happens. And you might be in a pocket of somewhere where you're at a company where that isn't happening. But this is a real systemic problem in the software industry that unfortunately today we are often managed by, or at least we have to basically deliver things to people who are not as technical as us, or they're just not in the same code that we are. And so if you want to keep the confidence of whoever you're working for, so you get rewarded, you get promoted, you don't lose your job because people don't think you're doing a good job. One of the biggest things you got to do is just delay commitments, commit to less, and reduce your throughput. And hey, if you're hearing all these things I'm talking about today and you're going, what the hell, Jamie? You're just making me mad. You're just making my blood curdle. I'm just getting more frustrated that I have to be a developer. That is not, the reason I share stuff like this with you. That's not the reason I make these episodes. But, sometimes I find people, they're just sick of this. They don't want to deal with this. They want to pretend that this isn't the real job. They want to convince themselves, well, I don't want to believe that being a good programmer, I got to worry about what other people think. I just want to do a good job and get rewarded. So I'm going to just, ignore what you're saying, Jamie. Well, if you're in that situation, there's a good chance maybe you shouldn't be a programmer. Or maybe you should shift your role a little bit. Maybe you should get into leadership. If you are in a leadership position, you're actually responsible for changing the company and doing certain things that you're not responsible for as an individual contributor. Maybe that's a better fit for you. And I've got a free wiki called TechRolepedia. You've maybe heard me mention this before on the channel, but it's got information that I've collected about the top 25 job roles in tech that is meant to really help you look at what are all the other tech job roles? Would I maybe be a better fit for one? Or is it time for me to get into management or leadership or become a consultant or become an entrepreneur? So, I'm going to finish the points here in a second, but I just want to mention, if any of this frustrates you, If any of this you listen to and you're pissed off, you don't have to stay stuck doing what you're doing. There may be something out there that's a better fit for you. The fifth thing you can do that'll really increase the confidence in you from management and everybody else is to elevate and recognize and praise your coworkers. I see so few individual contributors do this. People who are really strong, let's say senior engineers, and they wonder, how come I never move ahead? Well, here's the thing you got to think about. When people get promoted or people move into management, they're thinking, do I want to promote somebody who is never going to recognize my accomplishments? Do I want to give somebody more visibility in the company who's going to only be out for themselves and isn't going to care about all the hard work I do? And if they see that in you, that you always just talk about what you got done and what you completed and how much hard work you're doing, subconsciously, again, the management, the project manager, the scrum master, the VP, whoever's possibly responsible for helping move you ahead in your career, they're thinking in the back of their mind, they may not even realize it, that they're threatened a little bit by you. They're like, I don't want to promote someone who I have to worry about competing against. So if you really want to build confidence in your employer, you want to get recognized, you want to get rewarded, you want management to be behind you, you have to publicly, in meetings, in Slack, whenever you can, talk about the good work other people are doing. Congratulate your teammates for hard things they did. Point out when you were stuck and another person who's junior to you helped you fix an issue. You know, I think when we get into this place where we're so worried about image management and looking like we know everything, you know, we basically send signals to everybody else that we don't know what we're doing, because I think most people can see through the BS of someone who tries to act like they're flawless and doesn't have any problems. The sixth thing you can do that'll really increase confidence in you if you want to be seen as a really valuable member of your team and you're a software developer is to over communicate status. Now, I know one of the number one things that engineers hate in this industry is daily stand-up meetings or daily scrums or, you know, whatever you want to call them. And some people on Kanban teams do them too. But, you know, the idea of getting into a room where everybody has to say what they're working on, what they're going to work on next time. Remember, the whole purpose of the daily scrum, I talked about this in a video like 3 years ago, was really just to get developers together. So they made sure they talked if they weren't in the same physical area and they were able to just raise issues. It is turned instead into a glorified status meeting. It's just a way to let project management know you're working and you're getting stuff done. That was not the purpose of it. But if you want to build confidence in people, you have to give them the feeling that you are making progress. And I think one of the things that's happened because of daily stand-ups and daily scrum meetings is management often looks at developers as though the only time the developers are willing to really be held accountable or talk about what they're doing is in the daily stand-up meeting. And, you know, if you've been in a team that does this, the daily stand-up meetings and the daily scrums, you know it can be really tough every day to try to think of, oh gosh, how do I communicate what I did this week? But one of the things I think a lot of people don't realize is if you really want to get recognized, if you really want to get rewarded, if you want to move ahead, one of the best things you can do is send out, let's say, a status report, just a simple Google Doc every Friday, let's say, or every, Wednesday, whenever it makes sense for you, where you just give whoever you're personally responsible to some sort of highlights of the issue. Maybe, again, not too many problems. I talked about that in point one, but maybe one of the biggest issues that's on the project, if it's still an issue, or, talk about major accomplishments that you've completed when they haven't even asked for it. Now, again, I wouldn't say you have to do this with every person that you report to, but if you have a difficult relationship with a manager or a project manager or a scrum master, somebody like that, and you can tell this person doesn't have a lot of faith in the team, or maybe you, if you volunteer, just send them an email and say, hey, I thought it would really help you. I know we've got Jira, or I know we've got, whatever tool we're using, Asana, for managing tasks and all that. I thought it would really help you if I just kind of elevated some of the major issues that I feel like we got to stay on top of week to week. So this week, I'm just sending you a quick doc. Here's some of the things that might really help you keep the project on track if you know where they're at. And just choose a few things that are on your mind that you think it's really important that the management, that's on their mind. I think they're going to see you as a team player. They're going to see you as being concerned about the success of the project, and it's really going to build their confidence in you. The seventh thing you can do to really improve the confidence that management and other developers and people have in you is you got to highlight when you've found shortcuts to getting stuff done. It's really common when I'm on a project, I'll get assigned a task or start working on something, and I'll think something was going to take me a lot longer than I thought, and I'll find some really awesome workaround, or I'll find a third-party package that does it and saves me a ton of time. And what I used to do earlier in my career was, in paranoia and fear that I wasn't going to get everything else done, I would just do it and not say anything about it. And actually, that's one of the best opportunities for you to make it really visible that you've basically saved your company or your project a bunch of time. Now, you want to talk about this in a way where it doesn't sound like you're just completely tooting your own horn, where you're, raising awareness because you're just trying to get a bunch of recognition or accolades. But like, for example, if you had some issue with a memory leak and, you had estimated that was going to take you a week to figure out what the real cause is, and you find some article that gives you a tool that you can use, and you're able to find that problem in like a day or a day and a half, rather than just in your next daily stand-up meeting or whenever you're talking to management or in Slack, just saying, yeah, I'm past the, memory leak issue. You can say, yeah, I found a workaround that actually saved us. Us is the key word. You want to say us, not just saved me. You saved the team. You saved the company. It saved us 4 days that I thought we were going to have to spend on this, and just leave it at that. But if you raise awareness of times that you found ways to make progress faster, remember, a lot of management and engineering leadership, they do the best they can, but they're under a lot of pressure. They're feeling a lot of anxiety. They're feeling that they need to rush and get stuff to market as fast as possible. So you can kind of tap into that and build more confidence in yourself if you let people know when you found ways to get stuff done quicker. And the final way that you can really increase the confidence that management and other developers and people have in you on your project is if you document verbal decisions. Now, what I mean by this is, and I learned this in consulting, let's say you find a real big problem on the project, or you have a real strong opinion of a direction that the company should go. And you've not been, doing what I recommended against in step one or tip one of the video today, which is you're not just, spamming people with problems every day. You might have, let's say, a meeting with, an architect and the product owner or something like that, and you bring up this problem, and it's clearly a problem, and you know that it needs to be solved, but you just can't get support for it. I did an episode earlier on the show about a year ago about persuasion. Let's say you've tried some of those things, and you just still can't quite persuade people to go with what you feel is the right way to go. A lot of times when that would happen before I was a consultant, I would just leave the meeting, not do the thing. And then 3 months later, 6 months later, a problem would happen because they didn't follow my advice. And I would mention this to them. I would bring it up to them. Yeah, well, remember that meeting we had? And often they would just go, well, I don't remember a meeting about that. Well, I didn't say that. Or, well, I didn't agree that we should not do that. No, we have to do that. And I would be so frustrated because I'd be like, I laid out the whole case for this. I explained it to you. Maybe I even created a freaking presentation to tell you how to do it. And you still are going to blame me for it. Well, what you really got to do is when you get out of those meetings, draft an email and just say, hey, let's say it was, John and Mary. You copy, you send an email to John and Mary and you just say, FYI, conclusions of our meeting today or something in the subject, whatever you want to call it, and just say, hey, it was really great to meet today. Just wanted to let you know I do understand that we agreed we're not going to deal with the failed database backups or, whatever the thing is that's the problem that you were trying to steer them away from. And then don't expect any response. They may respond, they may not respond. I've had times when I've sent this and people went, well, wait a minute, actually, maybe that's not a good idea. But most of the time they won't. But the reason I'm telling you to do this is if you get yourself into that spot then 3 months later, 6 months later, whenever, when the thing that you recommended them not to do or to do, they get in trouble because of it. And the problems you were trying to help them avoid, they run into, which is pretty much inevitable. You can go back to that email and say, well, actually, we had a meeting about this. And they go, well, I don't remember that. Forward that original email to both people, John and Mary or whoever were present in the meeting, and just say, hey, just wanted to let you know, we did discuss this earlier. I understand how frustrated you are because we're in this situation. I'm here to help us through it, but this is the original decision that was made. I'm happy to help correct this and get us back on track if we want to make the right decision. And you're reminding them by saying, if we want to make the right decision, that it was not your decision to do that. Now, they're going to be frustrated a little bit, but it's going to build confidence in you. It's also going to hold them accountable a little bit, and it's going to prevent them from blaming you for doing things that aren't really your fault. So are you struggling to get recognized for your hard work? Are you being an amazing developer, writing amazing code, implementing all kinds of stuff, and you're struggling because you're still not getting rewarded and recognized and getting the confidence that you're hoping people would put in you by now? Are you ready to stop buying into what all the other influencers and people tell you, that it's just about you need to be one of the top coders, and start putting at least a little bit of your energy in your career into communicating better and doing some of the things I'm talking about today to really build confidence in you? Let me know about it. Leave me some comments. And if you haven't heard about it already, I actually have a Patreon now. So if this channel's benefited you, if you've been helped in any way and you'd like to help support ongoing creation of these videos by me, there's 2 memberships you can join, and one of them even gives you access to a private Discord server we have. And you can actually talk to a whole bunch of other people who love the channel too. They're also trying to have healthy careers and get some help and support from other people. So until next time, thanks. Mm-hmm.